Namo Gurve Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharma-activity Namo Sanghaya Namo Ve Namo Buddhaya Namo Paramaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Ve Namo Sanghaya Namo Paramaya Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity and the other far-reaching attitudes, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. So I forgot if we explicitly mentioned it last week, but we meant for everyone to read verse 6 and its commentary, which is only a page. And so before we start discussing verse 6, I'd like to, just for the sake of keeping our memories warm, kind of give us a recap of verse 5. So 3 and 4 were, 4 was more or less an extension of verse 3. So if you turn to page 30, that you can, in your mind, you can kind of visualize that verse 4 is connected to verse 3. But if you go through verse 5, you'll see that there was emphasis on the flaws and faults of samsara, 6 that are explicitly mentioned in detail. And then it's through understanding and completely comprehending these flaws in samsara that one cultivates a mind of renunciation, or the wish, or the abandoning of samsara through the wish to be free from cyclic existence or samsara, and the effort towards liberation. So that was covered in section 5. As we go through today's session, please feel free to raise any comments or thoughts or questions on any of the previous verses and their commentaries as well. It's important, for the sake of the format that we've kind of slowly adapted to in terms of this being a more traditional book club. where you'll do your personal reading at home or individual reading at home, and then we'll meet together to discuss the points and reread the sections if need be. But because of that, it's the pace of the sessions has been a little bit more quick, if you will. And so we're already in verse 6, and which is fine. Obviously, this text itself, let alone all the other lam-rim works of the great Lama Tsongkhapa, are meant to be studied and studied extensively and comprehensively. And so there's, even though we're going through the verses each week, please understand that we're going through kind of a general outline and structure to give to give participants an additional idea of the scope of the path and the practice and leading to the liberation and enlightenment through Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings. And so, yeah, please keep that in mind, that even though we are going through the text at a particular pace, and we might, quote unquote, finish at a particular time in the near future, please understand that this is kind of a crash course, if you will, and a 101, rather than the actual thing in terms of the study and the practice, because this is something that takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, and a lot of understanding. So yes, but because we have been following the format of a more traditional book club, if we can go ahead and turn to page 34, verse 6. It's only a page. We do hope that you had the chance to read it. But before we actually start discussing any of the concepts in the commentary, let us all recite the root verse together on page 34 here. So please recite along with me. Inspired by this immaculate determination, with mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness, bless me to pursue the Praktimoksha vows, the root of the teaching, as my core practice. In the commentary, Geshe's teachings, or Geshe's commentary, were very to the point, and by word and by line. If anyone has anything they would like to start with in terms of asking or raising comments or a topic of discussion about, please feel free to do so. If you're here in person, I have this traveling mic that we can use. And then for those of you following online, please feel free to send messages in the chat box. I guess I can start with something. What kind of stood out to me in terms of kind of navigating both the terminology in English and then in Tibetan is making those connections. With my lack of experience in translation, a lot of light bulbs still need to go off in terms of, just the language and connecting terms to each other. And so my first thing was the second line. But before we actually go there, when we look at the first line, inspired by this immaculate determination, this is, as Geshe has explained, is a reference to the mind of renunciation. So if you go back to verse 5 really quickly, you can see that the last line is bless me to generate intense, or I'm sorry, if you look at the third, both the last two lines, seeing these faults for the joy of nirvana, and please bless me to generate intense enthusiasm. So this is a reference to renunciation. And then, so inspired by this great determined wish to abandon samsara and pursue liberation with mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness. Please bless me to pursue the Pratimoksha. So mindfulness, alertness, and conscientiousness. Those three, I think most of you have had the time to understand the difference in kind of almost a chronological order of those three. And it was, for me, it was when you actually connect it with the terms in Tibetan, it kind of, you're like, oh, oh, this is the difference. Because sometimes in either language, they can start sounding or feeling very similar. And you kind of have to take a moment to really understand the definition to make those, to differentiate. But so tenshi, so mindfulness is tenshi, or Jampa, not tenshi. So Jampa in Tibetan is a reference to focus on an object of analysis, or focus on an object of meditation. Focus is kind of the main understanding there. Alertness is then Shishin is the term in Tibetan, and this is I'll never forget it, because the example that's used, chara means to like patrol. So the mind that after having focused on an object, the mind that guards or patrols what the mind is, what you're doing while focusing, is an example that comes up. And I remember this like with my classmates and things, and obviously in the text as well. The example that comes to mind, again, using the word patrol, is like a policeman or like a guard, like I don't know, a gatekeeper, if you will, that kind of like makes sure, that you don't release your grasp of focus. And then the conscientiousness is the one that actually differentiates. And correct me if I'm wrong. This is topics for discussion as well. So the one that kind of differentiates between, and is conscious of what the activity or what one is doing, mentally, in terms of it being a good action, or a positive action, a negative action, an analytical action, a meditative action, so on and so forth. And so I think, it's interesting that all three are mentioned specifically, and they're not meant to be synonyms. Each has its own definition. And that's why I think it's mentioned, all three of them are mentioned separately. So it was kind of a reminder for me. So my understanding, and from what I've read on the small amount that I've read on this term, it's in the explanations that have come up in previous, actually, months, in the previous chapters of Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life on Sundays. And I think that's it's referring to the mind that differentiates, or is able to an awareness that differentiates between positive, negative, and what is going on. Like what is almost a recognizer of the action, or what activity is going on. I believe so. Yes, I believe so. And so, in your understanding, how would consciousness be explained? Yes. Oh, sorry, sorry. For the sake of everyone online, would you kind of sum that up again, Joseph? Thank you.
So my understanding of conscientiousness is it's more so like a consideration for others. Yeah, and I think it's like it's a well, what I thought is what it refers to is the mental factor conscientiousness, which is like sort of like a consideration for others, or like uh tying into like the moral discipline, like refraining from actions that that based on like others, it wouldn't be appropriate to engage in.
Right, right, yes. So in alignment with what you just shared, there was something here that was posted online, and it says Chandas. So Jampa is mindfulness. Yes. Another translation for Shishin here is alertness. But aside from alertness is introspection. Yes, is one that's come up in the teachings, I think, through Tenzin Dorjila's translations. I think this is probably a more common term. And then Payut is conscientiousness or vigilance. And so I think that term vigilance is in alignment with what you just shared. And when the vigilance actually kind of comes out more strongly when you think about the term in Tibetan, because you, pa me, and you, so you means that some like the existence of. Me means the opposite of that, which is non-existent. So pa yuba. So it's referring to the existence of something, and so pa, just like you mentioned, is, or like here, is a vigilance or of restraining from negative actions, and then almost like all of these are valid. I think I'm just sharing because this is kind of a discussion. I'm just sharing how it feels, just kind of in my mind. So it's almost like, so you have the patroller or the guard, and then you have the understanding. It's almost like the guard understanding what it is he's doing. He's not guarding, a piece of chocolate. He's guarding a great golden palace per se. It's almost a recognition of what it is that you're guarding, an awareness of what it is that you're guarding, and seeing the importance of that. And so if it's between negative, positive, let's say positive and negative, you're kind of aware that you're on patrol while focusing on a certain activity or a certain object, and knowing that what's at stake, and knowing that what's positive and what's negative. I think that's kind of how it feels, the term. I don't know if that makes sense, or whether or not that was even helpful, but it could have been just mindless blabber from me. But again, this is, we are discussing things, and that kind of stood out. And, from my perspective, kind of seeing how these terms line up with how they feel, being a relatively okay speaker of both languages, is interesting to make those connections. But thank you for sharing that. So yuba is having, or the existence of, to have or not have. And so it was shared here as having vigilance. So you can kind of understand that for the context of vigilance. And I think that is in alignment with what you were saying, Joseph. Yeah. Yes.
So there's an emphasis on pursuing the pratimoksha vows, but isn't all that based on not acting out of anger, not acting out of attachment? And so it seems like there's a lot more to being able to not act out of those um, than what's entailed in the pratimoksha vows.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have a thought about what Joseph just shared? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I'm just looking at the chat, and so they're interacting in the chat as well, which is nice. They're helping each other out in the chat. Thank you everyone for helping me out too, because I'm trying to keep focus on both the chat and then everyone attending here in person. But yes, yes.
So I'm not sure I understood exactly. Actually, the pratimoksha vows are just like here; they're given here. Oh, but they're not explained in detail. But
would you mind perhaps rephrasing a little bit, Joseph? I think I got you, but just for the sake of everyone else.
Yeah,
would you
so the
mind?
pratimoksha vows, it feels, for example, like you could easily take it like um for example, like I, I don't I don't know where I was going with this, but anyways, pratimoksha vows, like why is the emphasis on the pratimoksha vows and not on just not acting out of craving, attachment, anger, hatred? Why isn't there an emphasis on that? Why is the emphasis just on the vows, right? Because if you just emphasize the vows, then it's just like this set of like outward actions, and there's nothing internal. So why is there that emphasis?
Oh, well, I'd be more than happy to hear your thoughts as well. So yes.
well, I think that this is kind of like the foundation of it is like a basic line of the first line of defense is the vow. Of course, you should not be acting out of anger, attachment, and all that. But the very basic foundation of any morality would be to refrain, let's say in our case, from the five negativities, right? Yeah, this is how we start. But of course, you have to also batten all the other negative states of mind as well.
I don't know, it just seems like in the foundation of all good qualities, it doesn't, and even in this commentary, it doesn't necessarily have an emphasis there. And even in the previous verse, developing the mind of renunciation, it's not necessarily talking about the practice of non-attachment.
Right. Right. So I think this is where these these other resources that we're going through, I guess you could call them supplementary resources, as a means of further understanding of the text are beneficial. Um, certain details, certain emphasis may be placed in these other texts rather than the concise explanation that's offered here. But similar to what Letterin mentioned, I do think I really like your mention of the first line of defense because Joseph, as much as I agree, as we all agree with your sentiment, it's probably very difficult for us as beginners to start tackling the, uh, uh, our mental actions and our control over our afflictive emotions immediately, off the bat as beginners. And so if we take a second to just look at the pratimoksha vows and the pratimokkha vows, the emphasis is on the actions of the body and the actions of the speech. You don't see a mention of, oh, you're not allowed to think this, or you can't think this, you can't think that. It's first refraining from the things that are easier. Between our speech and body and speech and our minds, what is it? Maybe, yeah, and I would think this applied to most of us. You can be the judge of that, but it would seem that again, kind of this. I know steps and ladders, staircases are examples or analogies that come up in the text a lot. So if you can kind of imagine, just like you mentioned, Vladimir, like that first line of defense. So if you can imagine that first step would be, okay, well, obviously my mind has been under the influence of afflictive emotions since the beginning of time. so I'm going to do my best to work on that. But before I can jump into the ring and tackle that head on, what can I first control as a means of getting closer to that or gaining a habituation to that? And that's first my body and my speech, these very tangible, present, in front of my eyes kind of elements. And so
I think that's what the emphasis is on in terms of that first line. The second line slowly, and then if you talk about the three vows, we talk about the pratimoksha vows, bodhisattva vows, and then tantric vows. So the bodhisattva vows and then the tantric vows are the emphasis is on the states of mind. With pratimoksha vows serve as a basis in order to get closer to that ability. And let me give you an example here. I forgot who mentioned it. It might have been a friend as well. But if you imagine, for example, if you're not allowed, let's say you're a kid in a playground at school, and you're not allowed to play basketball. You know, the principal, the teachers, the school rules say you're not allowed to play basketball. If you're not allowed to play basketball, will you even think about playing basketball eventually? No, because it's not even possible. So your mind's not even going to go there. Now you've eliminated that space, or that what was taking up space in your mind. You know, the act of playing basketball, the ball, the uniform, the shoes, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, you know, it's all out of your mind now because you're not even allowed. So why is it even taking up space? And it eventually does not take up space because you eliminated the possibility of that in your mind. And so likewise, let's say you're not allowed to kill, right? In the pratimoksha vows. So when you refrain from doing so, your mind is no longer thinking about the act of killing because you're already asserting the vow of not killing on your mind or in your mind stream. And if we look at that action, that's probably one of the more major actions that one could take out of anger. And so you're already kind of reducing one action out of anger there. And so you can feel the benefit of that in that way. Kind of just as an example there. Did that make any sense?
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
I'm not sure if, like, for everyone that would actually work, just refraining from the external action. And then I feel like there are more steps in between. It's like, yes, first refrain from the external action.
Yeah.
But then it's like you got to start actually seeing the faults of the actual anger itself, craving
Yeah.
itself.
Yes, and that's the obviously when it comes to refraining from the action, there is that intention. There is that mental process that goes and says, okay, I can't do this, right? So that's kind of spurred or instigated from a mental internal element or internal mind, and then understanding the fact behind that. Why is it that I'm taking this vow? Why is it that I shouldn't kill? So on and so forth. And so in that way, I think one is able to get a bit of a background on refraining from negative actions and refraining from anger, seeing the faults of anger, and so on and so forth as kind of a lead up to the actual action itself. And then through the action of refraining, understanding that it becomes beneficial, helpful, almost a tool, if you will, to refraining greater, even in a more firsthand action, activity in that way of training one's mind away from anger. I think it can be seen in that way. Is that? I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think yes, it's something like that. I feel like conscientiousness would tie into it a lot because
I mean, can I ask you a question? Let's say, do you think it would feel easier without the vows to refrain from, the mental affliction of anger and these afflictive emotions that we're trying to stay away from, attachment and so on? If you didn't have the vows, would it make a difference at all? Whether or not you had the vows when it comes to tackling these internal afflictive emotions?
No, because you definitely have to have like a reason not to do it in the first place. And I feel like that it begins with like just faith in the practice that these aren't things we're supposed to engage in, but eventually seeing that firsthand for oneself, like as to why, would actually dry up all of those potential to even act upon it, act out of
Right,
attachment.
right. So, so I guess another question, would it be, let's say, if it wasn't through, these vows, and we wanted to, we know the intention, we're trying to rid ourselves and abandon our afflictive emotions. Do you think it would play out the same way? If, let's say, I don't know, let me use another example. Let's say if I want to, this example came up randomly, don't don't judge me. But if I'm a thief, right? If I'm a burglar, and I want to get into this safe, right? This like deep safe, like in the back of the bank. That's my intent. That's my ultimate motivation. Would it be easier if I just found a way to get there without like tools to like first get in through the door? But that, per se, that's kind of how it played out in my mind, in terms of an analogy. Do you think it would be? I don't know. I don't know. Does that analogy even match up there? Do you think maybe, does it feel like maybe the emphasis doesn't need to be so much on the pratimoksha vows, and maybe just, why not just focus on like just sheer mind training? Don't focus on the external actions or your body and speech so much, but like tackle head on your, your internal afflictions. Is that, do you feel there would be a difference, or?
Um, Wait, so what is the question? Do I feel like there would be a difference if
Yeah,
there
let's say if there wasn't this focus,
if
there wasn't this,
weren't
focus
vows?
on the vows, and you could just,
No, I feel like it would be a mistake not to have the vows,
uh-huh,
definitely, because then people would be able to people would mistakenly believe that they can still engage in these actions, and somehow while they're engaging in them, they
right,
can give up the mind of attachment or the
right,
mind of anger.
right. And so yes, I think it is, yes, it's probably, again, just because of the habituation and the depth of habituation that we have with these afflictions of emotions, that it probably takes uh, a much longer time and a much longer process of engaging with them and then slowly uprooting them, um, than
Just
yeah, it sometimes might be presented. And so it is because of this.
Yeah, it's just that something that would like commonly
Yeah,
happen or commonly happens to me is that it's like, okay, I know the faults of anger, I know the faults of attachment, but I keep engaging in it,
yeah.
and so it's like, why is that?
So let's
Because
say, yes, that's ultimately what we're trying to address. But let's say it was a particular action that this anger or attachment led you to. If you were no longer, if you no longer were able to do that out of taking this vow, that would have already alleviated some aspect of it, if not completely uproot anger and attachment completely, right? So it's almost taking those steps, kind of that first line of defense, kind of those steps towards that, kind of in that kind of order. I would, I believe that's what the emphasis is. Um, yes.
So I'm on the Zoom looking at the chat as well,
Great.
and I'm seeing the word of ethics pop up.
Yes.
And that's making me think of comparing like the modern era to the 20th century.
Uh-huh.
And I've been told that in the 20th century, ethics and morale were like principles that everyone talked about and like focused on.
Yes.
And today in the modern era, it feels like ethics are kind of like absent.
Yes.
And so there's always been suffering and there's always been non-virtuous actions. But today I find that we're committing non-virtuous actions, not even being aware that an ethics or a system of ethics can exist. So in the case of if the vows are gone, do we still act out of anger? My idea here is that without the vows, we may not even be aware of what anger is. So, like the
Yeah.
vows create a system of ethics for us to be able to reflect internally.
Yes.
Not to say there's a necessary condition, but I
Yes.
see the interplay there.
Yes. And yes, I really agree with that connection, and that or that interconnection between the vows and then the awareness of our afflictive emotions and the greater means of practice and in ways that we can tackle these afflictive emotions. I do think they do offer a gateway of learning as well, rather than just kind of a code that you just stand by and that's it. It's just, I have these vows and I got to just stand by them. I think it offers a greater avenues to engaging and to understanding and to ultimately tackling these afflictive emotions. Thank you for sharing that.
If I can just add one more thing.
Yes, of course.
One thing I just thought of was if I have a pure awareness of anger and of what acting out of anger does in terms of my suffering or it being a non-virtuous action, then perhaps I wouldn't need a vow to outward act, because I already know I'm abstaining from acting out of anger because I have developed this awareness of anger. Just an idea. I'm trying to like play devil's advocate here, of like wondering if we throw vows out the window,
right,
can we still have virtue?
Right.
It's
it's probably, again, I just kind of keep thinking about that first line of defense or that first step. And maybe, when we talk about these concepts as, when we're just going through them as concepts, it can seem a little bit more simpler than when we actually sit with them and then practically apply. And then, you can really see the depth of our suffering, of our afflictive emotions, and how even though something conceptually feels okay, like, okay, there's a format, there's steps, I got it. When it comes time to practice, the smallest, just change, the smallest condition, and we're just back to ourselves. And so I think that can, something like that can act as a reminder of how essential these foundations are. And so, yes, thank you for sharing that.
So then, if mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness are present in the moment, would it be even possible for one to still act out of attachment, anger, something like that?
Right, right. So so precisely, I think that's what's being emphasized. That inspired by this immaculate determination, with mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness, bless me to pursue the practice of motion vow. So I think these themselves are types of tools in terms of antidotes, or using tools of antidotes used to refrain and to adopt the qualities we're trying to adopt and to refrain and abandon the non-virtuous states of mind and conduct that follows them. So yes, yes, probably in these moments, it's what you're doing is trying to make it. You're trying to reduce the variables, and if possible, even make it impossible for yourself to engage in a negative action when in these states of mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness. Yeah, but what does everyone else think? Before you share your thoughts, Vladimir, I'm just gonna read some of what has been shared online. So the sumsum vows or ethics, ethics of refraining from negative actions. I think not killing isn't, excuse me. I think not killing is an example of observing law of karma. But pledging or vowing not to kill is observing both an ethics and law of karma. I think not killing is an example of observing the law of karma. But pledging or vowing, yes. And so, yeah, that's something that kind of came up in my mind as well when Jamie and Joseph, you were sharing your thoughts. The intentional action of pledging or promising to refrain from something or to adopt something, that brings about its own set of results, positive results, in terms of merit, in terms of enthusiasm, in terms of determination, so on and so forth. And so I think that's to be had as well. So it's not just kind of seeing this as just, again, not only just the steps or structure, but the benefits to each and every of these steps and structures. So this in itself is a practice. And so, yes, thank you for sharing that. So it's not just, this kind of reminds me of something that His Holiness has mentioned before, violence not being just the mere absence of what is it? Non-violence not being the mere absence of violence, but something along the lines of, yes, absence or non-violence not being just a mere absence of violence, but actively refraining. Exactly. Yes. Yes. So so it kind of reminded me of that. So thank you for sharing. And then yes, virtues are possible without committing to vows. That depends on the intensity of attachment and other delusions. Yes. Yes. So committing to the vows or taking the vows themselves bring about positive results and their own set of beneficial and what's the word? Fortunate results. But just because, let's say, you don't take them, and you do refrain from, let's say, even though you didn't in your mind take this oath to not kill, and you still just on an everyday level just wouldn't kill anyways, and probably would refrain from killing given the chance to kill, for example. That's yes, that is a good thing. Benefit is to be had, results are to be had from that. But again, kind of that intentional oath brings about its own set of particular positive results. And so, yes. Anyway, yes.
The vows actually given by the Buddha. So the vows, so they're not just something we cannot really throw it away.
Right.
It's not optional.
It's not just kind of a,
it accumulates merit. It's
Yes.
an action.
Yes.
All
Yes.
following this.
Yes, it's an action.
It's an action.
Yeah.
But I just want to say that it's not clear from the translation here. I have a different translation of this verse, that actually mindfulness, awareness, and conscientiousness, they're to be applied to the vows. This is what the verse says. This is what you're mindful of the vows. You monitor whether your mind strays away from the vows, and conscientiousness refers to the basically making sure that your mind doesn't go away from the vows or engage in negativity, contradicting the vows.
Right.
But so in the third translation it says, "Please bless me through this pure motivation to develop great recollection, mindfulness, alertness." And mindfulness. So that's a problem, another problem here. But nevertheless, in adopting the Pratimoksha vows, which are the root of the teaching, as the heart of my practice.
I can understand how those, just by how the terminology here can make it seem like after having cultivated those separately, and then I'm gonna do this. But I think it is how you mentioned it. It is meant to be expressed in how you mentioned it there. So bless me to pursue the Pratimoksha vows. So it's like through mindfulness, alertness, or with mindfulness, alertness, and conscientiousness. Yes.
Okay, so what is then the difference when one is practicing this actively refraining? What is the difference between actively refraining from doing something that's not in accordance with the vows, or just practicing like non-attachment, because doesn't necessarily to practice like non-attachment, there has to be an object of attachment. But for the vows, there doesn't necessarily have, you don't have to necessarily have the wish to like break a vow, right? Does that make sense? So it's like if there's an object of attachment,
Mhm.
then you could practice non-attachment. There has to be an object. Does there have to be? And then I guess the like what is the difference between like holding the vows, like actively refraining from the things one refrains from in the vows?
Oh, the second part, I'm trying to.
So for example,
What does it
in
mean
the
to you?
vows, like okay, you're actively refraining from killing, but you don't even have the intention to kill. There's no object for you to kill in the first place.
Mhm.
What is the difference between that and just like non-attachment in the moment when there is an object of attachment and then you transform that into like non-attachment?
Oh, what is the difference? Okay.
There's like non-attachment, and then there's actively refraining from certain things in the vows. Is there a difference?
Non-attachment and then actively refraining. Jamie had raised her hand.
I'm not sure if this is correct, but the way I hear Joseph's question, and I want to answer it, is I see like an internal external differentiation. Because like internally, I've decided to practice nonviolence.
Mhm.
And then that's just my decision. That's the way I look at life. That's my lifestyle. And then when an opportunity to practice violence presents itself, I actively choose not to. And that's my outward action. Or like in the practicing non-attachment could be that I'm choosing to practice non-attachment. And when my friends offer me like a really nice beer with a bunch of beautiful women around it, I will refrain from that because I'm trying to practice non-attachment. Or like I've made the vow not to kill. And so like I don't go around finding myself in opportunities to murder a bunch. But when like a bug walks by, I might think, oh, pest, but sentient being, I cherish you. I've made a vow not to kill, so you may live. You know, or I just pick you up and go put you on the flower outside.
Right.
Does that kind of help, Joseph? Or
Um, difference between non-attachment and then what was the other one, Joseph?
The actively refraining
Actively refraining from attachment
from
or
it, from anything,
from
like in accordance with the vows.
practice of non-attachment versus actively refraining.
Practice non-attachment, practice of the vows. Isn't that?
as it relates to attachment, or are you just talking about two different concepts? Are they different?
How does both function? Non-attachment. Mm-hmm.
I think they do. First of all, the vows, when you take a vow, you already have the intention. It's always with you. So anytime you don't kill, even right now, if you have the vows, yeah, okay. Well, there are different theories about that, but some like the Prasangikas would say that the vows are always with you because they are formed. They are not a state of mind. Let's say, I mean, well, yeah, yeah. Then you don't have it, but you, as long as you have it, yeah. Then you don't have it if you break it, of course, right? But if you have it, even if you're not mindful of it, you're accumulating merit because you're refraining from whatever you promised not to do. I don't know, maybe. Is it the case? You're only mindful of you have the vow. Joseph is saying.
It's difficult with only one microphone. So in what mode do you then have the vow if you're not even mindful of it? right? Is it true, you know? Because I used to believe that as well. It's like if you took the vow,
Yeah.
you will accumulate the karma in association with having the vow. But if there's no mindfulness, if there's no active refraining, if there's no action, how can you then accumulate that karma?
Well, I think, I mean, it may make an interesting scenario because let's say that was a criteria, and then it would become as if in 1 second or 1 minute, I had the vows, and then the very next minute I wouldn't have them, and then the third minute I would have them again, and then the fourth minute I would lose them. That would be, if that were a criteria specifically. I think maybe when one takes the vows or makes that oath, there is that habituation to the oath, like that understanding of the oath. And then even though, even though there's different forms of, what's the word? I guess conscious and subconscious might be a way to look at it, where even though you're not like, it's not, you're like, your mind isn't like thinking about that's every specificity of that vow in each and every living, breathing moment, the mind to maintain the vow is there.
It becomes something like you would never do.
Right. I think that comes from habituation. That comes from understanding the concept of what the vow is. So I think, if you're to kind of look in, like if you're to look inside yourself, let's say, just draw from your own experience. And let's say you took a vow, even just a 1 day vow, right? Like the Mahayana, like 1 day vow. And like you don't eat after 12, or you refrain from killing, and so on and so forth. Is it, would you be thinking about that each and every moment? And if you didn't, let's say even for like a millisecond or a second, you weren't, would that constitute you not having the vows, or having there being like a disconnect between one moment of the vows and the next?
No.
Yeah. That's kind of my initial feeling on that. But yes, yeah.
No, but yeah, but like if
But I
don't know.
It was Jamie. It was yeah.
The chat is saying,
Yes.
someone with an iPad said you can have a vow without being mindful, as in sleeping state.
Huh?
And then it was asked, is there intention in a sleeping state?
In your dream, that well, certain consequences can be had, but not, that doesn't constitute like the actual. I'm sorry. Oh yeah. Oh well, yeah. I think we were going through. Okay, so. Okay. Okay. So where were we? So,
Figure out if there's intention in a sleeping state. It'll help answer Joseph's question. If you break a vow in your dreams, is it non-virtuous? Because like, it doesn't intention have to play with that? In a dream, there's intention.
what was that the question? Is there intention in a sleeping state?
In the sleeping state, is there intention?
Not even sure. Yeah, even in the dream, I believe there could be, there could be intention.
So then you can break a vow in your dreams.
Well, it depends on all the aspects of what it takes to fully and completely transgress a particular vow. Yeah, this is something that's actually brought up in the text as well. Really interesting, concepts. But let's say you killed someone in a dream, but then you have actually killed someone. Killing a dream individual or a person in a dream, will you have killed someone? And we would say no to that. Obviously, it was an action, and so any action of the body, speech, and mind brings about a certain result. but the degree of that result, the intensity of that result, it doesn't, probably wouldn't be as strong as actually killing someone, and that wouldn't constitute fully breaking the whole vow. Certain consequences, yeah, just because it's an action, but that would not be fulfill the criteria of actually breaking the vow of refraining from killing.
Act of killing in a dream.
Yes.
It cannot be killed.
Right.
Because you can't accumulate.
There's a technical term. There's 10 actions that you can do. There's a number of actions, negative actions, which are given. Let's say not intentional. Yeah. You kill by stepping on an ant without seeing an ant. This kind of thing. There are a number of them, and that's one of them is killing in a dream. So it's not accumulated. Because of that, it really doesn't constitute the full karma of killing, and you cannot break the vow, I think.
So I'm going to go to the chat online really quickly. And so just as Jamie mentioned, and just as you were mentioning, Vladimir, that despite how the wording is in the root verse here, in this particular text, it's meant to be understood as basically, bless me to pursue Praktimosha vows through mindfulness, introspection, and strong conscientiousness, or with. So it was mentioned here as well. And I'm laughing because I know exactly who this is. Thank you. So yi with, oh gosh, with the second syllable s there is symbolizes an action or a reason, and so with or through, and so that's what's being expressed, and so that's what's meant to be presented, and then what is asked, or the whole lead up to the sleeping actions, where it seems that virtuous actions, etc., presuppose an ethical framework, and the virtuous actions are considered virtuous in relationship to that ethical framework. There is no free-floating virtue. Yes. You can have a vow without being mindful, as in sleeping state. So if we examine that sleeping state without this mindful or intentional mind, I mean, you're just dead asleep. Interesting. I really wish Geshe Tsultim here was here for this one. But yeah, so for that one, I believe it would be understood in the form, or is seeing the vow as in the shape of the form, rather than that intentional mind of retaining the vow. A form rather than a consciousness, just as you mentioned, Vladimir, like in the Prasangika school. But then also, let's say when we're awake, I do think if that intention is there, it could be either conscious or almost a subconscious state of awareness of that. And then the question or the conversation goes on and on this topic, and the question the question arises: is there intention in a sleeping state? And then seems like virtuous behavior would require intention. Not sure though. And then an answer to that is not necessarily. It depends on the intention before you fall asleep. And then further conversation asks, why would that be so? So virtue or non-virtue, without intention, let's say in a state of sleep, is that possible? And then the follow-up answer was, it depends on your state of mind when you fell asleep. Yes, I know. Yeah, no, something was mentioned in the text in Tibetan. So yes, yes. Well, you know what? At this point, I'm not sure it matters so much because I think we're all here. I mean, in terms of, no, in terms of us being here as a group, as a book club, everyone kind of knows each other anyways. And so, by this time, initially, I think when we started, I was, out of respect, out of, giving people space. I didn't mention, I was trying not to mention names. And sometimes it comes up automatically because you guys are sitting here and I'll be like, here you go, Joseph, or here you go, Jamie, or Vladimir. And yeah, exactly. So what I'm laughing at, is so the Jamie, you can see iPad. So that individual is Tenzin Dorje himself, our translator. And so he's been helping me kind of navigate both the terminologies, and then he's obviously offering his own insight into the text. And so he's the one that was, mentioning, or he's the one that mentioned, it depends on the attention before you fall asleep. Okay. I wasn't expecting this. I don't know if I'd be laughing half as much if Geshe was here. I apologize if it starts to feel informal. But but now another individual who I also know who this is asking, what was said in Tibetan? Let's have some transparency, please. And so yes, Jamie. I wasn't hiding it. Yes. So it was said that yes, this is me. It's me, Tenzin Dorje. So thank you, Tenzin, for participating. But yeah, is there? There's not any particular question, but I really, that is a very valid concept and point to examine, particularly in sleep and in terms of actions in when in sleep. A lot of the karma related content has a lot to do with verse 3. Was it verse 3? I think it was verse 3. And then obviously karma itself is a very complex topic. The most subtle karma can only be comprehended by enlightened beings. But when it comes to karma explored in the text, obviously the great Vasubandhu's Abhidharma, the 4th chapter, is literally called a presentation of karma. And so in that chapter, there's karma is dissected in very extensively and comprehensively. But thank you for bringing that up, because it plays a very practical question. These are all things that we experience on the day-to-day and can experience on the day-to-day. So yes, it's a very valid topic to be talking about. So there's a comment here, or a message here that says, do you have any insights do you have any insights, Ari, killing from personal situations or any of that sort? Trying to make sure I understand this correctly. I do believe what is being asked is kind of how, Jamie, you mentioned the example of about to engage in a certain action, let's say the killing of an insect, out of seeing them as a pest or something harmful to oneself or others, and then refraining out of either compassion or being reminded of one's vows. I think that's what's being asked.
But that doesn't apply to the killing the vow. If you kill an insect, you're not breaking the vow.
right. So,
No, you're making a comment killing, but you're not breaking the vow.
so I think the reference, yes, is to human beings. You know, even though killing of anything is to be practiced, when it comes to this particular vow, I do believe the reference is that of human beings. And so when it comes to the vows, and I think this, you know, what you just mentioned there has a lot to do with the original questions when we started the session. And so when it comes to the vows, knowing what characterizes each and every vow, each and every aspect of the vows, we talk about, you know, four parts, right? Shi sambajo tadu. Shi is foundation, and you know, forgive my translation. I know maybe the common translations might be different, but she is the foundation, or the object, or the, you know, yeah, basically the object of the action. Samba is the motivation or the thought. Joa is the actual action. And tardu is the what do we call that? The completion. Yes, that's right. The completion. So it would have to fulfill all four of those to actually have fully transgressed a particular vow. So the object. Yes.
Well, yeah, as well.
Yeah. Yes. And so when it comes to the object that's being referenced as to what is being killed or who is being killed, or the being that's being killed is specifically human beings. However, of course, we must still do our best to refrain from any type of killing. But going back to what was being asked, you know, maybe maybe this is more of a personal question of any personal, you know, experience that I have in a situation where probably is about to do something like that, and then I step back. Not any off the top of my head particularly right now, but yeah, you know, I'm sure many of us do. If there's any that you would like to share, or you know, please feel free to do so. And then, okay, thanks. So intention, samba, intention and motivation. Basis shi, basis. I use foundation. So basis, intention, the actual action, and then a conclusion or completion. So thanks for that. If we go through.
So in the dream, then there is no object.
Right. So that was my thinking when we talked about it earlier. So let's say, you know, if we're to actually examine those four things, that object is not there because an actual real person is not there, and is not, you know, no person actually died because of the dream or in that dream, or well, not in the dream, but because of that dream, or, you know, through that dream. So that would definitely be, you know, the one thing that we'd be missing from the criteria of killing. Yeah.
Sort of related to my previous question on like the actively refraining side of holding vows, and then just like in the moment when there's an object of anger or attachment, you know, like craving, let's say in the moment you're craving something, and then you practice non-attachment. Maybe it would be helpful just to like explain how in the moment one practices non-attachment. Because necessarily to practice non-attachment, isn't it true that there has to be an object of attachment?
Yes. Let's say yes. Yeah.
So then
How does one practice non-attachment when it comes to?
Yeah, just well, I think it would just be helpful. I think it would just be helpful to like go just, you know, go through it. Just go through it, please. Like practice of non-attachment.
Oh, well, I would love to hear others' approaches first. I mean, I have ideas off the top of my head. It's just kind of, when you mentioned in the moment, I'm not thinking of this as how would I do this like instinctively, like what would be my first reaction when I think about non-attachment to a certain object.
Well, not necessarily. Like, just how do you think you know, like your understanding of like the best way to practice, not necessarily how you would practice, but
Yeah.
like just your knowledge of the
Oh, well,
proper way to
okay.
practice.
Okay. Well, my take on that would be, obviously, let's say, well, it depends on what the object of attachment might be. And obviously, that maybe doesn't have to be so important either. But let's just say we take that into consideration, what the actual object of attachment is. Let's say you're attached to someone or their physical form. You mentioned in the text,
How about like you're gonna do something, you're gonna indulge in something.
I'm sorry?
How about like you're gonna indulge in something, you're gonna go like watch TV or something, or you're gonna indulge in that.
Oh, well, 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 one way is, and this might not necessarily, doesn't necessarily even have to be through the lens of actual practice of non-attachment, but you could think, oh, well, but with that motivation, you could be like, oh, well, and this is just very on the ground. Well, instead of watching TV, maybe there's something more beneficial that I could do with my time. Practically, this isn't even necessarily through the aspect of practice, but you can think and start from like, oh, well, okay, I want to tackle my attachment with Netflix or these shows or whatever I watch on TV. Well, you can think about the benefits of refraining from it and then the consequences of indulging in it. I think that can be a format that can be used. In any
Is that non-attachment?
I'm sorry?
Is that non-attachment?
Certainly that can be used as a tool to non-attachment or practicing non-attachment. That could be one of them.
Okay. Like what does the full practice of non-attachment actually entail?
Well, I think there's more than one way to practice non-attachment, and in terms of techniques or antidotes, as they're called, different ones can be used. And
Yeah, there's still be different things you can contemplate.
yeah.
What's the general?
For example, well, I mean, you gave me an example, but I kind of want to go back to the one that I was bringing up because it's mentioned explicitly in the text of, let's say, attachment to form. So we think about miduba. Miduba means unpleasant. So the unpleasant aspects of the body. Skin is only, what is that? Beauty is only skin deep, and we take that literally, and it could be taken literally, because underneath, blood, pus, veins, the like. And so the more you think about this, the more repulsed you become. Is that a word, repulsed? The more disgust is generated in what it is that you're being attached to, despite its initial appearance. And so let's say, for that example, I just wanted to throw that out there. But if it's something else, I believe also, just because we're sharing our individual thoughts here, impermanence. That nothing will, even though I'm attached to this because it appears to me as pleasant, right? We're not attached to unpleasant things. We're attached to pleasant things. So, I'm seeing this as pleasant, and that's why I'm attached to it. But even if it's pleasant, one, it's only momentarily pleasant, and each and every moment, even each and every millisecond or more or less, it's changing. It doesn't stay that way. So there's nothing to grasp ultimately. There's nothing concrete and substantial to grasp at and call pleasant because it's constantly changing. And this is in the context of there's ordinary things in our ordinary lives in samsara. That's one way to look at it. That's one way that it can be, or a certain antidote can be applied in terms of impermanence. Another, even deeper, would to be examine emptiness itself, as or wisdom realizing emptiness being the antidote of grasping at the self, because the grasping at the self kind of sets the pretense for attachment to pleasant things, because it's me that I want the pleasantness for, me, right? Ultimately, it's not like I want this randomly or just because. It's because I want it, right? It's because I'm trying to experience satisfaction. Again, the key word being I here. And so if we go a little bit deeper,
so you're saying contemplating emptiness could be a practice of
Yes,
non-attachment.
and I remember you asking this specifically as well in another session as to how that directly correlates to other afflictive emotions. How does emptiness or contemplation of emptiness affect anger or affect, jealousy?
Just a clarifying question real
Yes,
quick. It's
yes,
what you're saying is, okay, think of this or think of that.
yes.
But, one can, like, what do you mean by that? Do you just stop thinking of do you like stop thinking of the object of attachment and just think of this instead, or what is going on there, because there's that craving towards this,
Yes.
sight, sound, whatever.
Yes.
Do you sort of like, do you push that away and then start thinking of this, or
I think
how does it function?
when you start, let's say you think about it, just going to that simple format of what we were talking about, of thinking about the consequences of something if we indulge in it, and then the benefits if we refrain. That very thought itself, if you start thinking about that, you're already kind of shifting the object of your focus. And so inadvertently, or maybe directly or intentionally, you are shifting from the object. But it's not just sheerly the shift from one object to another that decreases the attachment. It's shifting to the object that serves as an antidote to that itself serves as an antidote to that attachment. It's not
Yeah,
just the
you
act
say
of
like
the
shifting
object.
shifting an object, but my understanding it's like it's more to deal with like discerning wisdom, just discerning another aspect of the same object, right? So is it more shifting the object entirely, or is it more discerning another aspect of the object? Because how does the mind
I think
then,
both, yes.
how does
think
through the practice of
discerning.
non-attachment, how does it then actually eventually give up that desire, that craving? How does it eventually do that? You know, doesn't it necessarily have to like be presented another aspect that's actually
Yeah,
not
I think
so,
so.
but it's like,
I think so. I think so because the reason we're attached to it is because we're only seeing one aspect of it, the pleasant appearance aspect of it. We're not looking at the other aspect, like the consequential aspect of it. So if we change that shift, uh, not only are we exploring another aspect of it, but we are also shifting the focus on the pleasant, additional temporal pleasant appearance aspect to
yeah.
to something else or object.
So if you're discerning that
Yeah.
that aspect that's not appealing, that's unappealing,
Yeah.
then eventually the mind will sort of it'll sort of calm down. It won't be
Yes.
you know, pulling in that direction anymore.
Yes.
Just naturally, just by bringing in that unpleasant aspect.
Yes, yes, exactly. But it's not again just the pleasant and the unpleasant aspect is something that's actually real about it. It's not something that you made up just to kind of like distract yourself for a while. It's like, it's not like, oh, okay, I'm so attached to this dog that I'm just going to think of a pig for a second. No, the pig is not an antidote to attachment to the dog, right? It's let's say
It's just another
yes,
quality of
the another aspect of the object of attachment, one that I guess you could call it kind of an veil, or like behind the veil of the initial appearance of it being pleasant. There are more layers to that. There's more to that reality of the object that you're focusing on.
So then there's not acting out of it physically, but then eventually the point is not to act out of it mentally as well. And so is there is there so is that the practice? It's like, are we even able to not act out of it mentally, or is the practice just to like sit with that unpleasant aspect that you've discerned, and then not act out of it physically, and then eventually the mind itself will calm down, or is there actually something the mind should not be doing there?
So when it comes to, again, just kind of maybe in the context of like the physical or like the body and speech. So let's say your mind is still very tight. You're not even thinking about the unpleasantness of that, but you're just refraining yourself from engaging in the action. Let's say I'm not even thinking about what happens if going back to the basketball thing. If I play basketball too much or overexert myself, I might get an injury, or I don't know, and I need to go to work tomorrow. What if I like break my knee, or what if I, ACL injury, whatever, right? Let's say I'm not even thinking about that. I still really love basketball, really want to play this game tonight, but I'm not allowed to. Then that's already, I think that's kind of what, when you mentioned the physical part of it there, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, oh, like I'm thinking about the consequences of playing this match or playing this ball game. You can already, that can already take place, like you refraining from playing the game, whether or not you're thinking about the consequences of playing the game. Can that thought of the consequences be also kind of be present with the action of refraining? Of course. And if anything, it supplements and increases the benefit to be had from refraining from the action. But I think both can be possible. And again, because most of us probably aren't strong enough and don't have enough training, aren't trained enough to just to be able to act sheerly on the mental, just from the mental front or from the mind. What is more easier or more, controllable are actions of the mind, or I'm sorry, the body and the speech first. And so as a means of getting there. But if one is able to implement, all the thought process behind the consequences of engaging in a certain action, and then have that even be a motivating factor in why you would physically not engage in these, more benefit is to be had, of course. Does that?
Yeah, so the question was like, okay, is there something mentally when we're supposed to be refraining from, or is the practice of non-attachment really just simply, discerning unpleasant aspects and not acting out of it with body or speech? Is there an aspect of within the practice of non-attachment, is there a mental action that we're supposed to be refraining from?
Basically, you're trying to develop, it's a mental factor, like you mentioned. It's one of the 11 virtuous mental factors. So you have to develop it. Now, in order to develop that, you have to meditate. So it's just a matter of meditating. So you meditate on the unattractiveness or the ugliness, the ugly aspects and all that. So this, as a result of that, the moment you're confronted with a beautiful object, attractive object, whatever you like, then immediately, rather than developing attachment, non-attachment will arise as a result of your meditation. It's a training.
So then what is the end result of this practice of non-attachment? Is it that the mind naturally just doesn't go towards those things anymore? So that would be the result.
7-point mind training, there's a saying, but the 3 objects, 3 poisons, and 3 virtue roots. So if that refers to 3 things. As a result of practice, when you see the 3 attractive objects, whatever they are, I don't remember, rather than the 3 poisons arising, immediately the 3 virtue roots arise. One of them is non-attachment. But as a result of meditation, it's just a practice. It's meditational practice. That's what it is. You're developing that automatically.
So then taking into consideration the end result of that practice, if it's true that, over time the mind would just naturally not, it would no longer crave, it would no longer have that. So then with that in mind, then the result of this non-attachment would be, if it would be that, then there wouldn't be anything mentally you're trying to any mental action you're trying to stop there, because it would just naturally, over this practice of non-attachment, it would just naturally put down craving. Is it true?
If you don't mind, actually, but you're not going to eliminate it, right? You don't think that you will eliminate it by these practices. You're just suppressing that.
Yeah, that was kind of what was going through my mind.
Yeah, so you're suppressing. So the potential will always be there.
Yeah. So
Eventually you have to realize emptiness in order to eliminate for a long time.
Sure,
Right.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That was kind of something that, as you were finishing the question, that was something that flashed through my mind. How it would help in a certain level, in a certain form of non-attachment, but completely eliminating it and uprooting it, that it takes more than that. But this action in itself.
Well, then it would go back to this verse that we're going through with mindfulness, alertness, and great conscientiousness.
Yes.
Would it be even possible, after training the mind for, years and years in non-attachment, would it even be possible to still act out of craving? And so the answer is it would be, if you didn't realize emptiness or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Possibility.
The seed is there, but if you're not going, because you'll be so trained that immediately
Yeah.
attractive object.
Right. Jamie, I'm sorry.
I'm not trying to answer Joseph's question here. I just want to share a personal example. In regards to anger and attachment, seeing the illusory nature of the object has helped me like immediately just drop the affliction of anger or attachment in both situations. Like one time for example, someone was getting under my skin, right? And I got angry and I was like, oh, I have anger because I'm offended. And then I thought, wait, I am offended, and I saw myself as an illusion, and I just started laughing.
Right.
And the anger was gone, and I'm just laughing now.
Right.
And another example with attachment was once I was like, I really wanted this outcome. And I was wanting it. And then I just thought to myself, wait, this I that's wanting isn't even here. It's like I saw myself as an illusion, and immediately I just started laughing because I was like, I don't want this. The illusory nature of myself became in my focus.
Yes.
And instead of attachment and affliction, I just started laughing, and it dissolved.
Right.
Doesn't always happen, but those are some situations where seeing the illusion pretty much just changed my experience dramatically.
Right. Yes. So the application of this practice and the dissolving initial feeling and then initial perception, I think that's definitely in line with what we were sharing in terms of your previous question, Joseph, about the practice. Like, what is it? Or is it then, does it disappear? Or what is the actual action? I think an experience like Jamie's is accurate to maybe express what a moment of practice would be, or applying the antidote would be. The decreasing of that attachment or that afflictive emotion, whatever it is, and then or the dissolving of it after having cultivated a different train of thought. And so that over time, an habituation and gradual decrease, and then eventually, a complete uprooting through other causes and conditions. But yes. Let me just catch everyone up with stuff online. So, are you enlightened when you kill attachment? No, just because you kill attachment doesn't necessarily mean you're enlightened or fully enlightened yet. I think reflecting on the demerits of attachment with regard to an object aligns with non-attachment in the situation. Does that? I think reflecting on the demerits of attachment with regard to an object aligns with non-attachment in the situation. So, yeah, with regard to an object aligns with non-attachment. Yeah. So reflecting the mere reflection of the consequences or the unpleasant aspects of the object is a practice of non-attachment.
Yeah, that just the reflection of the actual the actual demerits of the attachment itself.
And then it says depends on what you were. One of us.
I think the same thing.
Oh. Hold on. Would you mind turning off the mic first? I accidentally unmuted the Zoom on the phone. Oops, sorry about that. But I think this was as a reference to your watching TV reference earlier, and it says depends on what you're watching. And then yes, the act of indulging. Right, not just the general action of watching something. Yeah, so it's like indulging. Yes. And then another question is, what about attachment to the self-existing I, which is a non-existent object? So I believe this is in reference to attachment. What about attachment to the self-existing I, which is a non-existent object? To the perceived self-existing I, right? Self-grasping, right? So the self. What about attachment to the self-existing I, which is a non-existent object? What about attachment? So basically, I believe it's alluding to what antidote? How would you? So we were talking about attachment to like the body, right? And form, TV, or the act of watching TV, and then this question is specifically in regards to the object of the self-existing or the perceived self-existent I. Or like what antidote or what practice would be applied to that, I think is what is being asked. Yeah.
It doesn't really, you have to count, yeah, it makes no sense.
I don't know, because I'm more familiar with like the craving side, like that strong wish for something, to see something, hear something, the five senses.
Yeah.
What's fear of death?
Jamie, can you? Yeah.
Then what is fear of death if it's not like loss of attachment of this existing self? And I get fear of death can be like fear of the unknown, like what's to come next. But like when someone is like
the body, everything, all the relatives, friends, everywhere. People want.
so it's still attached to the external objects, not that this self here. Cool.
What the other attachment is.
These are really great questions. Really honestly.
But that explained it, right? This is what you said, that this is what the way to abandon attachment is by reflecting on the emptiness of the self-existing I, right?
Yes.
So
well, one form, one way,
right,
to approach that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I'm sorry. Okay. So, yes. Yes.
Attachment is necessarily practice, but it is something we generally.
Well, it's a virtuous mental factor. 11 virtuous mental factors, and you have to create it. You practice it indeed by meditating. Yeah.
So, hold on. This is really great because the comments and the interaction keeps on coming. It's almost 1:15, and so gosh, how do I do this? Another 3 minutes, and then we'll end the session. And I kind of how do I keep it in Zoom? How do I keep these? Do I have to like screenshot? Because every time I close Zoom, I lose all the chats. Really? Is there a setting where like you can make? No, you guys know? Okay, well, I guess I can keep screenshots for next time. They're really good stuff. So I actually had a thought myself, and this had to do with what Vladimir just shared. But for the sake of everyone else and their interactions. I'm going to put that on the back burner. I'm going to read everyone else's. So going back to attachment, I think this is in reference to what you were asking, Joseph, like the actual practice, like what do you like in non-attachment, like just tell me, like what is non-attachment, or like how do you practice? And it's letting go. Letting go, or non-attachment entails letting go. Is something that was shared, and then reframing shifts perspective with regard to the object of attachment. Reframing shifts perspective. So if you, let's say, if you framed this as, whatever it was, as, beautiful and pleasant, you reframe that as impermanent, illusory. I'm sorry? That aspect that is derived from it, there's definitely a pleasant aspect that may be derived from it, but is that its true nature? Will it always remain that way? And is it? Yeah.
If you meditate on the ugliness, no, why? That's exactly how you suppress the
the craving, right?
Yeah.
But that pleasantness is only one small temporal aspect of that object, right? Sure. When the pleasantness and the impermanence of that is right, exactly. And so indulging in this pleasantness, yes. So like indulging in this pleasant aspect of it, that only brings pain, because sooner or later that changes. And when that causes separation from this pleasure that you were deriving from the object. Yes. As a means, well, not for the sake of doing that, not for the sake of doing that, really understanding that it's true. And parts of its true nature. If it was completely and just utterly 100% from head to toe pleasant, then that'd be wonderful. I mean, please show me that, whatever it is, please show me, because I would love to see that too. However, most things in everything in our samsaric existence is not. And so understanding that's the greater reality. It's almost like, yes, exactly. So yeah. So I brought up the sleazy slime bag salesman example last week of like, it looks really good, whatever it was that he was selling you, and he himself was presenting himself as a really great guy, your best friend. Here, buy this thing and you're gonna like love it and it's gonna last forever. You go home, it breaks in like 24 hours, and you're like, see this guy. So that kind of illusion of whatever it is that we seem as pleasant, that applies to all impermanent phenomena in samsara. So with that kind of greater scope of perspective in mind, I think that's where it would be applied. Right.
You're not experiencing something both unpleasant and pleasant.
Yes.
If you see it as not pleasant, you're not going, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not denying that aspect of pleasantness. It's trying to look into the nature. Right. Yes. Right. Right.
One single aspect doesn't change, but just now you have more aspects.
Yes. Yes.
So you're different.
Right. But the truth is
right.
You don't experience the pleasure. You don't experience it. Since you don't experience it, that means it doesn't exist to you, in a way.
You don't experience it?
No, because that's my point. If you completely focus on the pleasant aspect, you're not going to experience the pleasant aspect. You cannot experience both at the same time. but that's the point.
Because if you were to eat food, you would still gonna taste food. That's never gonna change. Still gonna taste
Until your tongue goes off.
right? So if
Or you take medication
if
and
yours
it-
exactly if what he's saying is true, then the food that tastes good, it would stop tasting good. That's when you say that. It's possible, yeah.
Yeah, it is possible to do that,
So-
and you will not be craving that food, you know. What do you?
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
No, because what he's saying is
It's
like
possible,
if
basically.
you feel that tastes good, what he's saying is the pleasant becomes unpleasant, and now that food tastes horrible. The food is not going to change in taste. You're not going to change the
Only
feeling
because you
towards
taste.
that food.
Yeah.
Only because you say
The
so.
feeling is not going to change towards the food.
Only
It's
because
your favorite food. It's still.
Well, I would encourage you to try it out, to experiment and see. Yeah, yeah.
To go to, let's say, to seize an object that's
Sure.
pleasant and unpleasant simultaneously.
No, no, that's not possible.
What does it mean to
To experience,
So we're talking about the
the undesirable, yeah.
control of factor, system of control.
with a deluded mind.
So you're
It's just karma, right? It's just karma.
Well, it's mind trying to go the other way.
Like some people like certain foods and think that it's just karma, it's feeling. What can control the body?
The
Isn't that the whole point of it?
You're thinking about living in Siddha. So you meditate on that.
Can we use the mic?
Certainly another aspect.
Exactly, yes. But this unpleasant aspect will completely eliminate the discerning of the pleasant aspect.
So,
Yeah, that's the point.
So,
He said yes.
so if we go back to what Jamie mentioned about the dissolving, I really like that term because it sounds like very experiential, and I think this is something that we can all feel. That decrease, when you think about the unpleasantness of that object, the heightened perception of pleasantness decreases, right? Right?
Yeah. I think there's-
And this is not denying that there, let's say it's a piece of candy. It's not denying its sweetness. It is sweet, of course, but the craving and the attachment is what we're trying to, right? Yes.
Can we discern the difference between sweet and pleasant? Because the sweetness of the candy, how pleasant it is on my tongue and
Right.
So I can
Yes.
focus on the unpleasant.
Yes. Let's focus on pleasant. I think sweet was kind of kind of sidetracking us. Pleasant. Let's focus on pleasant. Yeah. So yes. So pleasant is what we're trying to, is what we're looking at, like in this conversation, right? So a pleasant, actually, if we're going to discern these two things, it might actually seem that it's helpful. In understanding our perception. So it's our perception of the object rather than the object itself. So if you look into the pleasantness of something, there is that self involved. There is that perception from one's end involved. And so that, how Vladimir was mentioning, that can be, because it deals with one's feeling, one's perception, that level and intensity changes, rather than us talking about the external object, like completely transforming. What we're transforming is our perception of the object, right? And so this is internal. This is internal work, and the craving that we're trying to decrease, that stems from our perception, right? And so basically what we're trying to tackle and decrease is distorted perception of an object, and then the consequences and the negative results and the unpleasant results and suffering that result from that distorted perception. So ultimately, I think that's kind of maybe the blueprint, rather than denying that it's sweet.
Actually, that's yeah. This feels like this could be discussed a lot in a lot more depth. I think this kind of broke us into a side conversation between discerning the external characteristic of the object and then one's perception of it. Because pleasantness, I mean, would you agree that that's subjective, right? Which means it's kind of imputed and instigated from one's own end, one's own kind of mental, I guess, fabrications, right? Right, right, right. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of food for thought. Yeah.
Unpleasant. Unpleasant. That's what you're saying. That
as a result of the practice, unpleasantness is no more.
Can you use the mic?
So then, as a result of the practice of non-attachment, there's nothing left unpleasant. There's nothing left to suffer on account of.
Okay.
There's no more delusions. So
Okay.
then the only thing left is pleasant or neutral. Yeah, the Buddha experiences only pleasantness. So how could we claim that, it's not going to be experienced as pleasant anymore? It won't be experienced as pleasant through the lens of delusion.
I think there's different variations and different definitions of pleasant.
What do you mean the analogy of water, the hell being experiences it as something
Okay.
really horrible.
Okay. I'm so sorry. We're getting a little bit past time, and for the sake of today, I'm just going to go ahead and read. Please hold that thought. It's very important, and I think this is a very valuable discussion because, and I think this kind of is an example and sets the tone for a lot of future discussions because this is how they can break into different topics and different aspects. Really important to discern. And then we'll, when Geshe Tsultim comes back, we'll have another body here, with a strong rooting in the text to help discern as well. But so let me see. Letting go, non-attachment entails letting go. Reframing shifts perspective with regard to the object of attachment. It's roughly akin to falling in love, in parentheses, attachment, and falling out of love, in parentheses, non-attachment. Discerning or critical thinking is involved in non-attachment cultivation. Discerning or critical thinking is involved in non-attachment cultivation. Another comment is liberation is won by ending actions and afflictions. Actions and afflictions arise from false projections. These arise from conceptual elaborations. Conceptual elaborations are stopped by emptiness. Yes. Yes. So as a means of connecting the branches of what we were discussing today, this was very well shared. Yeah, I'm going to read it one more time. Yeah, yes. Yeah, did you read that? Yes. Oh, okay, great, yes. Liberation, I have a screenshot. But liberation is won by ending actions and afflictions. Actions and afflictions arise from false projections. These arise from conceptual elaborations. Conceptual elaborations are stopped by emptiness. This reminds me also of Nagarjuna's words. Essentially the same. Yes. Yes, so very much kind of the step-by-step of cause and result. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, yes, it's the very same stanza. Yes, so thank you there. And then can we get the Tibetan/English vocabulary on Sundays too? I think maybe this is one for Tenzala, that they're this is like their own side interaction here. Yes, yes. Yeah, Tenzala gives the Tibetan and also the Sanskrit most of the time. And so it would be great, but yes, that would be great. Yes, it would be great, but of course, without adding additional work. Being attached to the self-existing I that does not exist is as futile as falling in love with a barren woman's beautiful girl. Again, these really great analogies. However, hold on. Being attached to the self-existing I that does not exist is as futile as falling in love with a barren woman's beautiful girl, meaning non-existent. A barren woman's beautiful girl, beautiful daughter. So, right, it's an illusion. It's non-existent. So all the more reason to not be attached to it. Right. So you mentioned how you were laughing and it dissolved. Exactly. So, so that is, I think that's kind of a step-by-step experience in terms of, really tackling these sufferings and these afflictive emotions. People need to use the mic and talk loud for people online, please. Thanks. Yeah, we'll remember to do that. Thank you. I miss a lot of the discussion when people don't use the mic. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. We'll make sure to do a better job with that. Mostly, you do not learn from pleasant experience. That's an interesting one too. Because it's pleasant, right? Right. Jimmy says that ain't that the truth. So without attachment, one will experience pure pleasantness, no strings attached. Without attachment, one will experience pure pleasantness. Yes, no strings attached. Because of the no strings attached. His Holiness says our enemies are our teachers. Okay. Yes, absolutely. The vocab on Sunday in the chat box would be nice. Okay, visual. Okay, so then we'll do our best to set you up with that in terms of the live Zoom, just like we have here on these sessions. So thank you. We are at 9:30 now, and this was a testament to how productive and beneficial this conversation was. I really do believe that. I typically would apologize for going over. I think it gives Jampa here, he would have stopped me half an hour ago. But I really hope that everyone can rejoice in this collective session rather than feeling tired and anxious because we went over time. And maybe this can be perceived as making up for next week because for the sake of next Wednesday being Christmas Eve, family and friends coming together, we'll go ahead and hold off on that session. And so, go ahead and take this as kind of making up for next week a little bit. Great topics, and I really do hope that we can continue in this way. And thank you, Joseph. Please keep these topics on hold, and then please bring them up again the next time we meet. So, as a means of dedicating our positive imprints and merit collectively accumulated in this session, please turn to the dedication of merit on page 69 in the text and recite along with me. Let us dedicate our positive energy to the flourishing of Buddha Dharma throughout the world. Let us dedicate our positive energy to the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May his sacred mandalas of body, speech, and mind be unharmed by negative intentions and actions. May he and other great masters be successful in fulfilling their dreams and visions for benefiting all sentient beings. Let us dedicate our positive energy to all spiritual communities throughout the world so that they may flourish in their study, contemplation, and meditation. Let us dedicate our positive energy to the elimination of the problems in our world, such as famine, war, and conflict. May everyone in this and other world systems experience peace and happiness and harmony. Let us dedicate our positive energy to ourselves and to other Dharma practitioners so that we may overcome all obstacles to spiritual development. Let us dedicate our positive energy to ourselves and to all sentient beings so that we can purify the obscurations to liberation and omniscience and quickly reach full enlightenment. Thank you, and see you in 2 weeks from now.